I will call to order the Town of Old Saybrook Zoning Commission regular meeting agenda for Monday, March 17th, 7 p.m. Town Hall first floor conference room at 302 Main Street, Old Saybrook. Roll call tonight is Mark Caldarella, Chair, Geraldine Lewis, Vice Chair, John Henry, our Secretary, Robert Friedman and Laura Gray, regular commission members. And alternate members in attendance are Brenda Dyson, Casey Hand, Casey Costello Hand, and Michael Kelly. Also, we have 8 at the last count, 9 at the last count in the audience, and 1 online, looks like, and 1 online. Also, our clerk, Joanne Galley, is here, as well as Matt Willis, land use attorney. Regular business minutes from our last meeting, which was Monday, March 3rd, 2025. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I have a question about the bottom of page 2, the box on the motion to reconsider. That was passed. Does reconsider do the same as rescind?
Well, that's the wording you guys use, so
Okay,
I had to use the words.
it was
that you used.
rescinded, but it was also reconsidered, so. Okay,
Oh, that makes sense if you read it all.
Yeah, but that's the words that were used, so
Yeah, it's okay.
I have to use that.
Is there a second? Jerry Lewis, any further discussion?
second.
Seconded. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, passes 5-0. We have no other correspondence other than what's related to this evening's public hearings. So we'll move on to item 4, public hearings. A, Appleby Holdings, application for special exception permit, site and floor plan modifications to approve 4,486 square foot retail cannabis dispensary facility adult use at 5 Custom Drive, Assessors Map 46, Lot 1-6, Gateway Business B4 District. Applicant is Appleby Holdings LLC. Property owner is 5 Custom LLC. Action, open, public hearing, continue or close by April 7th, 2025, or no later than April 20th, 2025. Words open to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Joseph Hammer, representing the applicant, Appleby Holdings. With me is my colleague Matthew Rosenthal, also from McDermott Reynolds and Glissman. Joe Wren, professional engineer for the applicant, is on the Zoom. And Craig Laliberti, the architect, is here as well. This application involves property at 5 Custom Drive and the existing building located on the property. It's in a B4 zoning district. Adult use cannabis dispensary facility or adult retail is currently permitted in the existing building on the property by virtue of a certificate of zoning compliance for that use that was issued by the town in October 2021. And prior to that, this commission issued site plan approval, and there was also a certificate of zoning compliance previously for operation of a medical dispensary in the building, medical cannabis dispensary. The application before you tonight for special exception and site plan approval is in connection with the expansion or enlargement of the previously approved cannabis retail use for the following purposes. First, it's to create 8 additional parking spaces on the site. From the existence, 8 more from what's out there today, but it's actually 7 more from what were approved on the 2018 site plan. And with that, there will be associated modifications and improvements to the parking lot, space dimension, circulation aisles, landscaping, and stormwater management, and some nonconformities that are currently on the site in terms of the parking layout and dimensions will be eliminated. In addition, the interior floor plan is proposed to be modified from the layout that was going to be utilized for the medical retail use operations, and certain areas that are not needed for retail are going to be reclassified for purposes of the adult retail use. In addition, we're adding some, I think 86 square feet approximately of canopy overhang outside of the building entrances to protect people from the elements. And as you know, under your zoning regulations, even though it's unenclosed and it's outside the building, that counts towards both floor area and the building coverage, I believe. Prior to this evening, we have obtained a wetlands permit approval, administrative approval from the wetlands agent for the changes that are proposed on the site itself. That was at the end of February. We've also been in front of the ARB on March 10th. And we've gotten a B100A approval from the health district for the minor modifications that are being proposed. We also have submitted with the application a letter report from a transportation engineer at SLR Consulting, which addresses traffic and parking impacts of the facility. That was submitted at the suggestion of staff. The study concludes that the retail operation will not have a significant impact on traffic, and that the 23 proposed parking spaces will provide adequate off-street parking. With that, I am going to turn it over to our civil engineer to review the site modifications that are being proposed. And I guess I just want to ask Ross a second, do you or Joe to come?
I think he said he wanted me to go through it.
Okay. Ross Gladstone of Indigo, professional engineer.
Gladstone,
Yeah, GLADSTON. Next one is the site plan. All right, everyone, the north arrow is pointing up on this plan. The DMV is over here to the west, and this is our site. We already covered a lot, but I'll just go through the plans briefly. Here's the existing building that I'm tracing with my finger, and there's currently 15 spaces on the property. Parking spaces on the property, and we just want to add 8 to bring it up to 23 spaces, which is in line with SLR determined was appropriate for the use that we're proposing. We're going to add a detention basin over here shown in green that will handle the water quality volume, which accounts for 90% of the storms in Connecticut. And it will take care of impervious coverage. As he had mentioned, there are some proposed covered entries here and here, for instance. Those will add 86 square feet, I believe. There's an ADA handicap accessible space there with access to the front entry. And lighting, I think there's 12 building mounted lighting. They'll all be full cutoff, dark sky compliant. And then I believe there's 5 light poles. They'll all be 14 feet tall or less. Also dark sky compliant, full cutoff. If there's any additional questions, we have to answer them.
The green is identified as the retention pond, correct?
Yeah.
What are the blue identifiers?
The blue is the snow storage areas.
Hey Ross, this is Joe. Can you just go over the sign locations also?
Oh yeah, there'll be 2 building mounted signs one on the north side of the building, one on the west side of the building. Let's say Applebee Holdings LLC. There'll also be a freestanding sign here perpendicular to the road. There'll be a minimum of 10 feet off the property line, a maximum of 8 feet tall in line with the zoning regulations.
And this is Joe Wren again for the record. Just to couple that, as Attorney Hammer had mentioned, we've gone through ARB, we've gotten their full approval for the lighting, the signs, the landscaping, the site planning, the building architecture and so forth. I just wanted to reiterate that. There was one adjustment on the freestanding sign, and I believe Craig Laliberty is here this evening as well to show you that adjusted signs. The only adjustment was that the poles, the outer support poles, were brought down to 6 feet. They were a little bit more than 6 feet before, and ARB just asked us to reduce those to 6 feet.
Did Mr. Lawler, you want to respond on that?
Sure. Yeah, what I have here is, Craig Oliver for the record, architect working with, Applebee Holdings LLC. What I have here is I have a handout. I don't know who's voting or what's happening. But there's 7 or 8 copies there.
We need one for the record.
Yeah, and what we did here is we reduced the support posts on the exterior sides of that freestanding sign down to 6 feet to conform to the zoning regulations. Yeah. Okay, so what most of you recognize this building as is the emissions testing facility. Applebee Holdings has been having that as their plumbing facility for quite some time now. And what we propose to do is there's 4,486 square feet currently existing in the building. We propose to have 4,486 square feet, mostly renovation to the interior portion of the building. Some has to be done to the exterior, such as adding the roofs, the signage, painting the stripe that goes through the building, which we show here in color. So what we're doing is we're adding 86 square feet of roofing, which is dimensioned on, I think, on the plans that you have in front of you. And that's gonna do 2 things. It's gonna protect the people at the entrance and exit points to the building. It's also going to provide soffit lighting up inside the building, up inside the roof areas of the building to wash the points of enter and exits at the exterior facades of the building. We do have signage on the front, on the north side, which will be non-illuminated. And on the south side facing I-95, it's gonna be illuminated. The freestanding sign is also proposed to be illuminated, and all of them conform to the zoning regulations that currently exist. So as far as the square footage inside the building goes, like I said, we're remaining at 4,486 square feet, which it currently exists now. We did go conservative because we know that square footage is tied to parking. So we went conservative on the interior layout, which I'd be happy to walk you through, but I was asked not to. The other thing, we have wall pack lighting on the exterior side of the building for security reasons on the loading end of the building, which will light up the loading area. It will also, you can see here, the little square is a night depository box, which will have to be lit at night. All of our lighting fixtures that we propose are dark sky friendly. So it will just wash the building, it will be down, It will provide an area of lit area for security reasons only.
Do you have the floor plan on that?
I do have the floor
Yeah.
plan.
Before you turn the page, could you identify the two overhangs that you're proposed?
What we have is, we have entrance is on the north, the south, and the west side.
So there's three.
There's three.
Okay.
I do show. If I can, this is one.
Yep.
This is two. These are both on the north side. This is on the south side. This is on, oops, I'm sorry. West side here it is. Nope. And you can see that those entrances are all dimensioned. These two are on the north side. This is on the west side. This would be your main entrance to the building. This is on the south side facing I-95 along the title block, which is there. And we have recessed lighting proposed in each of the entrance exits.
Question then.
Yeah.
There's one on the left, west side of this.
This is the north side.
Okay, the north side, sorry. It's labeled curbside pickup.
Well, this would be, I'm not sure.
I believe, sure, I believe that there'd be 3 parking spaces in that area and.
So that would allow customers who have pre-order, that entrance and exit would only be for employees to exit, to serve customers that go into those 3 curbside pickup spots.
Right. I can show you those on the site plan.
So it's curbside, not drive-up.
That's
Or
curbside.
drive-through.
That's correct. No, that's curbside pickup.
Okay, not drive-through.
No, they'll run it out to the people who are waiting in the cars.
Okay, something goes on, all 3 sides of the
Sides of the front.
Signs,
times.
Sides.
signs,
All 3 sides,
all
Oh,
3.
all 3 are?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Both of them.
So the north side light, I was just informed, is gonna be illuminated as well. So that's this side. That's on the right side.
So both signs on the
Both
building
signs
will be
mounted on the
illuminated?
building will be illuminated.
Okay.
One is smaller, obviously, than the other. And then the freestanding sign will also be illuminated. I'm sorry?
Or internally?
Internally illuminated. Which I think is on the specification there. Yeah, okay.
And the floor plan is in your packet. And I guess I would just point out that much of the area inside the building is not accessible to the public or customers. There are various
This whole
storage areas, break
right here
rooms.
is what Joe's talking about.
Right, right.
The dispensary area, the retail space would be accessible.
Except not the area that's not striped and pink. on the
Not,
top left.
no.
This area is not accessible. Correct. Okay. And as Craig said, I think when we did our calculations on the zoning data table, we were conservative and,
Very
included in the retail, certain items that arguably might not be considered as retail, just so that we had a true parking count for the commission to be comfortable with.
I have a little, not necessarily architectural question, but about the curbside pickup. I don't think I saw that in the statement of use, but I did see it about the security of people going in and out of the building and checking their identification and their age. How does that work? Maybe I missed, how does that work with a curbside pickup?
The process just happens internally in their car. They would have, there is a software used by the state that scans the license, and payment as well. You cannot prepay at this time because you can't use credit cards to pay for cannabis. So the payment would be taken in, a handheld device that can have the capability of both validating age and also taking payment.
So they would check everybody in the car?
Do they, curbside pickup, I believe currently the state would require everyone in the car to be 21.
So you scan everybody's license? I just hadn't heard that before, and I didn't know how that was gonna fit into the whole security business.
And I will point out in the statement of use on the second page under floor plan modifications, entry canopy and parking requirements, there's a very long first paragraph. And at the end of that, where it talks about the increase in parking spaces, it ends by saying 3 spaces will be utilized for curbside pickup. I think it's the page before that, the large paragraph in the middle. Yeah, yes. And I would also add that, you know, this is a use that, you know, has very comprehensive regulation by the state of Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection, so they're subject to licensing, meeting all the very comprehensive and specific requirements in terms of operations, security, et cetera, and they will obviously do all of that.
Thank you.
Just on it does end, 3 spaces will be utilized for curbside pickup. I think for an update to the statement of use should have a section defined curbside pickup and what that entails. You have more?
We just are available if you have any questions for any of our consultants or anybody on the team.
Commissioners, questions?
This use is retail?
Cannabis retail, I think your regulations refer to it as cannabis dispensary facility adult use, but it is essentially retail,
Right,
yes.
so with regard to the square footage that we heard for gross floor area, the number shown on the table for building gross floor area is 4,572.
Yes, and
And in the B4 district, the parking requirement for retail under 62.4.6 Part D is generally 1 space for every 175 square feet of gross floor area. And if you do the math, I get a number greater than the parking spaces shown on the plan.
there is a parking calculation chart on our site plan. We can go back to that, but if you look at that, similar to what was done with the approval of the site plan in 2018 for the medical dispensary, we've broken it down into 3 parking requirement categories, one of them being retail.
Right, which is 1,700 square feet
You know,
of
retail.
retail space. It's 851 square feet of office space.
Okay, so you've broken down the
Yes.
gross floor area inside numbers
Yes,
to various categories in order to arrive at the proposed 23 spaces.
yes, correct.
Right, so from a land use perspective, this application divvies up the gross floor area into various functions that provide for a certain number of parking spaces. In terms of it being a retail use in the B4 district, that number of parking spaces does not support the whole gross floor area being retail. And so for the sake of future applications, one notes that there cannot be a complete only retail operation in this building, on this site with the proposed number of parking spaces.
Understood. I think we referred generally, to the building in its full size in terms of there's a retail facility. But again, as you saw there, we broke down the component parts, but I understand what you're saying. There can't be 4,286 that constitute retail itself, yes.
Thank you for fixing the freestanding sign. The one that we had received earlier would not have been in compliance. This is, we have to send a note to the ARB to look at the regulations that they suggested we adopt and that we have, so that they don't approve for give their approval for signs which are not approvable by the zoning commission. I noticed on the third page of your statement of use, in the middle of the top paragraph, fixture heights will not exceed 14 feet above finished grade. That includes the light fixture on top of the pole with a mounting flush to the existing grade. And I find on the spec sheets at the end of this stapled together document that it says the light pole is 14 feet. And that fixture on top of 14 feet would thereby exceed. And so I'm just asking for clarification that the words in the statement of use are the operative words for the height, that you don't use the spec sheet for the 14-foot pole and put a fixture on top of it.
Chairman Friedman, this is Joe Wren. I can clarify that the site plans also say 14-foot max from the finished grade to the top of the pole or the fixture, whichever is highest. And also what we found is that we were able to locate this particular pole that is only 14 because a lot of the manufacturers do 15-foot poles and they cannot cut them or modify them in the field. We found out. So we found a 14-foot pole, and the mounting holes are on the side of the pole. They're not intended for any sort of tenon or top mount fixture. They're mounted to the side of the pole, so nothing will extend above 14 feet from finished grade.
Right. So we got the height, we got that, I got conditions. One question about the medical marijuana dispensary retail, is that what it's called?
I think so, yes.
Is there any medical marijuana dispensary to be in this use at this site? Medical?
There are hybrid licenses. At this time, the proposal is just for the adult use retail. There are no more licenses just for medical use. So the state offers either a retail use or a hybrid use, which.
So this is more of a hybrid, an application for the hybrid?
No, this is
No.
current, this is the application for adult use retail. They're operationally, other than a requirement of certain operating hours and a pharmacist on staff, design is currently very little difference with the current design in a hybrid use. However, at this point, the intent is just retail.
Okay, so our experience was in the original 2018 approval was for medical marijuana only dispensary. And then subsequently the state changed the rules, and now we have the possibility of a hybrid. And that seems to me to be what you're applying for here. If you have the potential for the medical marijuana dispensary, provided that you conform to the requirements for the medical marijuana use, but you're not giving that up by applying for only the adult retail.
Correct.
Right?
Yes,
Okay.
Either use could be used in a facility of this design. The two main differences would be the state requires a minimum number of operating hours and a pharmacist on staff at all
Right.
times if you do have a hybrid license.
There were
The
access restrictions before that aren't part of this.
Correct. But, you know, generally, the bulk of licenses being issued are retail licenses. The hybrids are generally being conversions from past medical licenses.
All right. Let's see, that one, we got that one, we got that one, we got that. So. Right, do we have, anywhere on the plans, the height of the directional signs?
We have the size of the sign is 24 by 18.
Okay. And, 3 are proposed?
Yes, actually, Jeff Jacobson wrote a letter, which he would like to see an additional sign placed, a do not enter sign except for emergency vehicles on the driveway from 9 Custom Drive.
Is that on the 9 Custom Drive
Well,
property?
well, the problem was, we could not do it on the 9 Custom Drive site. Therefore, it will have to go on the 5 Custom Drive site, but it will be right on the property line. Either way, they're gonna have to spin a U-turn if somebody goes down that way. It's so that they don't use the exit lane, from number 5.
So that would make 4 directional,
It would be
Signs.
4 signs, yes,
which according to regulations is the maximum.
which I think is the maximum, correct?
All right, and Mr. Jacobson's letter, have you addressed all of his issues?
Mr. Chairman, I can start with those. This is Joe Wren. We have talked to Jeff Jacobson. He wrote a note. We have an email. He wrote a note to Chris Costa saying that all of his comments were statements of fact and or very minor items and that they could be conditions of approval. The drainage related items are basically just typographical numbers or slight changes that won't change the result. He even says that in his comments. 2 or 3 of the comments are just statements of fact. And then I'm going by memory, but the last comment was to add, or one of the last comments was to add that directional sign that was just discussed.
There was also a recommendation for easement between cross access easement to be established to formalize the arrangement between
Correct.
5 and
Yeah, we talked about that with the 9 custom application, and Attorney Hammer could expound on that a little bit more.
So I think just being consistent with Mr. Jacobson's various comments, I think we would be fine imposing an easement that basically provided for emergency vehicles to be able to access from number 9 through number 5, because all the other comments from our application next door, as well as here, already have the do not enter for regular type vehicles to go from one to the other, but to make sure that down the road, if the properties were ever in 2 different
Separated.
ownerships, I think we could certainly make clear that emergency vehicle access needs to be continued to be made available from one to the other.
that would be different than an easement between the 2 properties, the deeded easement.
Yeah, I think you could be in the form of a deeded easement, but I guess my point was just to protect the, emergency vehicle access, if that's something that would make the commission feel more comfortable. Or alternatively, I think just on the do not enter signs, we could also say, emergency vehicles only, if that made it clearer.
Well, as we'll look at this application, and it could always change in the future where the 2 properties could have separate owners,
Correct.
right? And I interpreted Mr. Jacobson's explanation, comment number one, it'd be a deeded easement between the two of them to protect that process.
And I guess I understand what you're saying, and my reading of the whole context of his letter is that protection would be to protect the emergency vehicle from one to the other, because based on the approval that we already have for 9 custom drive, and what he's also requesting here, it's gonna be posted, do not enter for customer types or worker types. That was my
I
only point.
understand that, but there's a big difference
For easement,
between the two
Yes.
definitions. And I believe that for the property.
Yeah.
That there should be a deeded easement between the two of them
yes, and I think
for that purpose
I-
versus a
Yes.
letter in the file that says
Understood.
that.
understood. I
So
think-
is that something that the applicant is agreeable to? as a
Yes, I think
condition?
if that's something the commission feels is important, then we would do that, yes.
Okay.
And I guess otherwise, I think a lot of Mr. Jacobson's comments, as you can see, were just,
The other one was on the bollards in the front of the building.
Yes.
That it's recommended, which this commission also, supports, that you've got 6 to 7 wheel stops at the front, side of the building, which would be the west side, I believe. And then on the, north side, it looks like there's 3 there with wheel chops.
Yes.
Wheel chops. So we're looking at bollards, is that agreeable in those 2 areas?
I would just ask Mr. Wren if those can be fit in those locations, okay?
Yes, no problem. They would be in place of the wheel stops that are already proposed there. There would be no
Okay.
wheels, just like Mr. Jacobson says in his letter, they would be in place of the wheel stop.
Thank you. And the other points in Mr. Jacobson's letter that have to do with dimensions, stormwater management was being agreed to and addressed.
I believe so. And again, I'll turn to
Sure.
Mr. Wren just to affirm that.
Yeah, so most of the dimensions are shown. The width of the exit drive on the eastern side of the building is called out as 12-foot wide. That is already on the plan. The parking space dimensions are shown on the north side as 9 by 18. I think the only typical dimension that we normally would have on there may be blocked out by some other text, but it's a 24-foot width, the typical width between, for the aisles between the parking spaces, and we certainly could add that.
So essentially, Mr. Chairman, I guess comment number 5, which deals with the dimensions, and 6 and its subparts, I think are the things that we could add as conditions of approval. Is that correct, Joe?
Yes, those minor items, correct.
Okay, thank you. And is the approval. And I guess number 7 is just adding a signature.
Signature block, yes.
Yeah.
Is there any, I didn't see any, but are there any changes to the landscape proposed? With the change in parking?
Yeah, I'll ask Mr. Wren if he could respond to that also.
Yes, Ross probably could point it out to you. We have full perimeter landscaping. We have a landscape table on the plan that shows that we meet or exceed all the percentages, the number of islands, the number of trees, frontage trees, island trees, total trees on the property, all of that. That's included on the site plan.
Correct, but there's no changes as a result of this modification that you're applied for. Is that correct?
Well, this modification being applied for adds impervious area, it adds parking. So it reduces the landscape area. That's why we have the stormwater management area. But overall, we still meet or exceed the zoning regulations.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions for the applicant?
See, on This is page 3, I'm counting the yellow sheet, page 3 in the statement of use, top paragraph again, that all proposed building and site lighting will be full cutoff and dark skies compliant and have a color temperature of 3,000 Kelvin or less. And that would include the wall pack, that's at the very bottom of the previous page, that despite in our regulations, which tells us to avoid a wall pack, that I guess they're really only supposed to be used over entrances to the building. But if you look at 68.1.5.C1, and the next to that is a gray box, and it says to avoid wall packs wherever possible. And yet I see a wall pack is proposed, but if it's full cutoff and dark sky compliant, it doesn't fit the old description of a wall pack. Right, so we'll make that a condition of approval that all site lighting be, I'll quote here, that's full cutoff and dark skies compliant with a color temperature of 3,000 Kelvin or less.
Chairman Friedman, that all should be included on the spec sheets, but yes, statement of use, the site plan, details and specs, and all the lighting specifications all should include that information. A wall pack generally is the old style, like you mentioned, that the full entire pack is lit up. So it throws light out its sides, out the front, all 4 sides in the front of it. This is incorrectly labeled as a wall pack. It should be just a building mounted light that's full cutoff and dark sky compliant.
Proposed location of the freestanding sign is shown on the plans. And that's where it will be located, because in the words, it says near. But this is where near is where it's shown on the plan.
Yeah, and again, I'll just ask either Mr. Wren or Ross, just to, I believe that is the case, right? That is the intent.
It's a very specific location because there's an underground stormwater pipe there that we have to avoid. So it can't be moved much, if not at all. And if it did move a few inches, it would still comply with the regulations. We have a 10-foot minimum distance, I believe, on the plan. Ross can point that out for you.
All right. Right. I don't have anything else. Anyone else? Jason? Sure.
I'm new, so I wasn't prepared for the previous approval, so I'm sorry if anything's redundant. Could I just get a little clarification about exactly the site circulation and particularly the bypass driveway? Is that intended for, I mean, it looks like it's for exiting for the deliveries. Is there a anticipation of some sort of future drive-through lane?
That's not anything that we're seeking as part of this application.
So that's only for exit for delivery vehicles? It's not a.
And I guess either Joe or Ross, could you address that just in terms of how that will function, that lane?
I think it's for delivery vehicles or customers if they wanted to use that lane. To go around the building.
Okay.
But it's not attractive.
Okay, and so this site interacts, there was talk of easements and cross easements, and I'm just trying to understand kind of how the site circulation works for that. So deliveries are anticipated to go through this site, or they're anticipated to go down the bigger drive that goes to?
I believe that deliveries to 9 custom to that facility would go down its own driveway, would not be crossing from one site to the other.
Okay, and deliveries to 5 go
Come
through the site?
5, right?
Okay.
So they're really separate in that sense in terms of the operations.
Okay, and are there easements? There are currently no cross easements at all.
Correct. And then-
for either
Right, and
access.
the only one that's come up, as you heard this evening, is for the, making sure the emergency vehicle access will be maintained, even if there's a change in ownership.
So shouldn't we as a commission require cross easements for both access ways? Because if the other site were to come under a different ownership, could that potentially present an access problem?
Because I think,
Because you have two, and with the bottom one, maybe some sort of limited cross easement if it's only intended to be used for emergency access and it's only intended to be one way.
which area are you?
So there's this access, which
Right.
also requires access onto 9. This is part of 9, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So they have to go on to
Okay.
9
Okay.
in order to get it there, right? And then down here, if the intention is that people using this site, can leave this way if necessary, but cannot go out this way except for, people presumably are not supposed to use this either way except for an emergency,
Correct.
right? So we would maybe have some sort of limited cross easement, is that?
I think that's what the chair was
Yeah.
suggesting when it comes to that.
And part of that access and exit around the building between 5 and 9 is really geared towards the fire apparatus.
Right, but if we don't legally require them to legally apply that, I could just anticipate a problem, 30 years from now.
What's the question? Matt, what do you?
Well, I would think if it's gonna be a cross easement for emergency use, I think that's
Okay.
what's been discussed.
Right in this area here.
But for the other area, I think we would also, typically a cross easement would also be required. Because what happens if somebody buys one and doesn't wanna let 5 use it anymore? Now we've approved an access that over somebody else's property.
Are you talking about the regular driveway access? or the
I'm talking about right here. They have to go onto the other property in order, onto their driveway in order to get onto the site.
Is there an existing easement for that?
I don't believe so, Joe, is there?
There is an easement there. I don't have the language in front of me. I don't know if it's just for utilities or if it's for utilities and access. No,
We
the
can-
owner,
that
the
could
owner
be a
is
condition.
online, you may know.
That's all I'm suggesting.
As long as that's agreeable to the applicant, I mean, it only makes sense.
This connection is needed for the fire apparatus as well. So. Can't really eliminate it.
Would you like to word it for me, Matt?
What's that?
Do you want to word the condition?
It would be a condition to have an easement to access this property from Custom Drive over non-custom drive. There may be one already, I don't know,
We can check on that as well.
yeah.
Attorney Hammer, isn't a cross easement kind of cover the whole property? And not specified to a width or a specific area? Ones that I've dealt with in the past, a cross easement is over the whole vehicular accessible area on a property.
Right, well, I think it could, and I think we would want it to be very specifically defined for the limited purpose that the commission.
Absolutely,
Right, not a wholesale.
Right.
One to the other.
That's not the intent.
Right,
Okay.
So the condition that we already mentioned as an easement would satisfy both.
Right.
Both inches.
Yeah.
In my
And both for
experience,
emergency use only.
No,
easements usually describe the exact area that the easement is
Correct.
referencing. So like they would describe the driveways.
this one's emergency, that one is for regular vehicular
Everywhere.
use.
So how are they calling it limited use?
Sorry.
So how are they calling it limited use? Wouldn't be limited.
I think what we're referring to is it's not basically saying, you know, anybody anywhere here can go anywhere here or vice versa. It's
Correct.
focused on.
But the other
Those two
entrance
locations.
wouldn't be limited use, the other entrance would be open access.
Yeah, no, that's- we're on the same page. That'll be a condition. I'll review the easements.
That would be something we would work with your council on.
Sure.
Right, the only other question I had is for the accessible space, is there a breakout? Is there, I mean, like a two?
Yeah, I think they'll use this walkway to get in. I believe there's a ramp here.
There'll be a curb cut for them to get from the space.
For handicap?
Yeah, there'll be a curb cut
Okay.
in this area.
Okay.
I guess there'll be a bollard there.
Okay, okay,
For the handicap.
thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Do you have anything else to present?
We do not.
I just want to mention one thing.
Oh, okay, sure.
There's actually currently 4 wayfinding signs on the property. So if we need to add another one, it would be on 9 custom down here. As
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
there's currently 4 wayfinding signs on the site.
On 5 Custom Drive.
Yeah, on 5 custom proposed.
4, right.
So if we need to add another one per Jeff Jacobson's comment, then we'll need to put it on 9 custom drive.
His comment was, referred to 5 Custom Drive in that specific location, which would have been the 4th wayfinder sign.
Yeah,
For
we had 4 initially and 1 dropped to 3. We were only proposing 3 and then Jeff Jacobson recommended adding a 4th.
Right.
So with his added sign, we have 4 total.
Correct. Okay. Since this is a public hearing, is there anyone in the audience or online excuse me, wishing to speak in favor or in opposition to? Please make yourself known. Anyone in the audience? Don't see anyone online? You can raise your hand if you wish to speak in favor or in opposition to the application. Not seeing any. Commissioners, are we ready to close public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay. Make a vote, go ahead.
We have gone through all the referrals, is that correct?
Yes.
You got a checklist? All right,
We received. I don't think we've received any referrals. That's correct, Julie?
Chairman, Caldarella, this is Joe Wren. Just one more point. I just looked back at the plan and we actually did a subdivision of this property. I don't remember the year. It was before the 2018 application, maybe 2017 or 16. And with that application, we had proposed an easement for that very purpose at that entrance because we were splitting and one was a flag lot. One was a frontage lot. We needed to have that easement so that both properties can access from the cul-de-sac. So that's already on there. There's a hatched, angle hatched area on the site plan that you can see.
We're good.
Yeah, well,
Confirm
confirm it, that's all.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Second by Jerry Lewis. Any further discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained. Passes 5-0-0. Do we have enough information to proceed with motion to
We have a list of conditions of approval.
Yes,
Which we can walk.
That's what,
We have conditions of approval of the items in Mr. Jacobson's letter and the 2 easements, one for emergency and the other for vehicular travel, unless there can be established that it already exists. Then we won't need that one, but those would be the conditions.
We also had on the light pole that it is a side mount light fixture to a maximum of 14 feet. And all site lighting will be full cutoff and dark sky compliant 3,000 Ks or less. That's everything I see.
I had a definition for the curbside pickup.
We also would like to get a updated statement of use defining the curbside pickup as identified in the last sentence under floor plan modifications. So the motion is there a motion to be made by anybody?
Want to make a motion?
Or
Move that Appleby Holdings application for special exception permit be approved with regard to the site and floor plan modifications for 4,486 square feet retail cannabis dispensary facility, adult use at 5 Custom Drive, with the conditions of approval as
previously
cited,
correct.
and that's it.
Second.
Seconded by Jerry Lewis. Is there any further discussion? Not seeing any, go to vote. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstains, passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Bert.
Okay, we're moving on to public hearing B. Kia application for special exception use to construct 1,300 square foot addition, facade renovation, new signs and site improvements at 275 Middlesex Turnpike, Assessors Map 52, Lot 63-2, Business B4 District. Applicant is Saybrook Property LLC. Agent is Joe Wren. Action, open public hearing, continue or close by April 7th, or no later than April 20th, 2025. Mr. Wren.
Mr. Chairman, this is Joe Wren. I'm online once again. Ross Gladstone from my office is there, and so is Tom Gribben, who's the project architect, Noise Voight. And similar to last time, Tom and Ross will go through the plans, and then I'll be here to answer any questions or for any clarifications.
Thank you. Ross Gladstone again, the same for land time. The applicant and owner is Saybrook Properties LLC, and the site is 275 Middlesex Turnpike. Route 154. Zone is the B4 zone, and behind me I have the site plan. On the plan, the north arrow points to the right. Down here is Middlesex Turnpike, and to the west is the railroad track.
Could you speak a little louder, please?
Yes,
Thanks.
excuse me. Here's the existing building in the black and white, the black and gray hatch. And essentially what the applicant would like to do is build an addition here on the north side of the building, which will be a service reception bay. Remove the existing canopy on the east side of the building here. And renovate the front of the building to create a new front facade. Add 2 new signs and remove the old outdated signs. The new signs, one of the new signs will go here on the east side, and another one will be there. This one will just be the Kia logo, and then this one will just say service for the reception bed. With the construction of this addition, it will make a few parking spaces go away, so they'll need to be relocated. So we relocated 2 of the handicap spaces here, and then the other ones back here in the northwest corner of the site. And the idea there is to just basically mimic the amount of parking that's there now.
How many spots are you relocating?
There's 2 handicap spots here that go away, and those are gonna be relocated here. And then there's like a accessible ramp an entry right there. That works out, and then there's 7 spaces relocated back here.
The total, so.
There's a total 9.
Seven in the back.
Yeah, I guess we relocated 2 handicap, but then we lost 1 space because of the aisle. And then we have 7 back here.
Because your statement of use indicates that it's a relocation of 5 parking spaces and 2 ADA accessible spaces, so that would be 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. Originally we had 5, and I think we were including 2 spaces in the surface bay. And Joe may be able to clarify, but
Because on your print in the back, proposed 7 regular 9x18 striped parking spaces. And then you have 2 relocated in the front for handicap, is that correct?
yeah.
So it's looking like 9.
Yeah, so I guess there'll maybe be 2 extra spaces.
You're eliminating 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, and you're,
We're essentially relocating the 2 handicap spaces and its aisle to 3 current existing 9x18 spaces. So those 3 need to be relocated, and then if you see where the service addition is right here, I have it up on the screen, there are 4 regular spaces. In that area that are also being relocated, so it's the 4, the 4 plus the 3.
so there's really,
So it's
sorry.
7.
There's a note right here, 4 regular spaces and 2 handicap spaces to be removed, plus the aisle. So that's 6 plus 7 for the aisle. And we have 7 to the back, I believe.
so it's a total of 7, 5 regular and 2 ADA compliant.
Right.
Okay. Because the statement of use on parking is not stated correctly.
How does that read again? I'm sorry.
The construction of the addition will result in the relocation of 5 parking spaces and 2 ADA accessible spaces, but the overall number of parking and display spaces will remain the same.
Joe, I think originally we were talking about the service bay having 2 spaces within it, so that accounted for 2 spaces.
Okay.
So maybe that's why originally we had 5.
Well, 5 regular spaces versus 4. Yeah, it means 4 plus 2 plus the aisle. So it's just accounting for that aisle. So we can update that on the statement of use. That's not a problem. The important part is on the site plan, it shows it's correct. It should be 4 regular spaces, 2 ADA accessible spaces, and 1 aisle, to be fully clarified.
Just make the 2 documents similar in its statement.
Yep,
Thank you.
that's no problem. I also want to add to that, we already have inland wetlands approval and we have B100A health approval for this. There is an oil water separator out in the front of the building. There's a trench drain in this building and there's an oil water separator located here, which doesn't outlet anywhere. It's just on a scheduled program. And environmental contractor comes in and just pumps that out when necessary. It's just for when you pull a car in there and it's raining out and you get water drips on the ground, it's just for that. So it doesn't have to be cleaned out often, but it will get onto a schedule and be pumped out when as necessary. And for lighting, I'm not sure if Ross mentioned that there are some building mounted lights. We are not proposing to change or add or modify any existing site lighting at all. There are some building mounted lights, and Tom Gribben from Noise Voight is there, and maybe he can point those out to you as he goes through the architectural plan.
One other thing, ARB wanted the signage to be reduced from 7,100 Kelvin to 6,000 Kelvin. Joe, do you know if they're going to do that?
Yes, so I'm glad you reminded me of that. So we do have ARB approval. One condition they had was the Kia logo sign is edge lit. So because it's edge lit, they wanted that one reduced from 7,100 Kelvin to 6,000 Kelvin, which was done. The other two, the service sign, and then I'll be talking about the old Saybrook words. Those are internally illuminated, so they have the acrylic outside, so they were okay keeping those at the 7,100 Kelvin. Now that's more than the 3,000 Kelvin that you're used to hearing, but that's for signs, not for site lighting. And lastly, we did go back to ARB. That's why this meeting was continued from March 3rd to March 17th, because we went back to ARB last week with a change to the sign, and we did submit paper copies of the plan to Sarah. So you should have an updated sign plan that shows the Kia logo on the front, but it also adds the words Old Saybrook underneath it. Industry standard is to have that Old Saybrook off to the right with a large space in between, but because we have to count it as one sign and we would have to count that space in between, we couldn't meet the 65 square foot maximum. So they got corporate approval to make those letters smaller of Old Saybrook and shift it to underneath the Kia logo and centered on that. So that's the sign plan that you should be looking at. I'll see if I could.
You have that in front of us.
Yeah, I'll see if I could share that plan. I think Tom is there and he has his plan. He could show that to you as well.
Yeah.
So ARB approved that change in the sign after we got the Kia logo and the service sign. Corporate asked that we include Old Saybrook in there, and it took us a little while to get the approvals to add Old Saybrook in this way, including that space. So Tom will show that to you now and then transition into the building.
So this is the Kia logo with the Old Saybrook letter below that, and so the total square footage was under the 65 square feet at 61.9 feet. And so this is the Kia logo, which is the edge lit sign, the 6,000 K, and then the Old Saybrook is illuminated. The letters, and that's 7,100 K. And then this shows the service sign here, which is 5.47 square feet. So all in compliance with regulations.
Just for clarity, I understand that the Kia will be at 6,000 K, but the Old Saybrook would be at 7,100 K.
That's correct.
Why wouldn't Old Saybrook be in the same Kelvin rating as the Kia?
Well, I think it was a concession on Kia from their standards to reduce from 7,100 K to 6,000 K. Because it's being edge lit, it illuminates to the sky. So that was ARB's issue with that. So they said, if we could reduce that, which was done. But Kia doesn't, Kia being Kia, I guess, this is their brand, and this is their national standard. So for them to compromise on some of that, if they didn't have to, they wouldn't.
Right.
So ARB,
Which we appreciate that they compromised to 6K on Kia, but that being one separate sign is the way we're looking at that. It should all be at 6K.
Mark, I could expound on that a little bit because I went to the ARB meetings. Old Saybrook and Service are both internally illuminated, so they have an acrylic front to them, so the light gets muted through that acrylic surface. The edge around Kia, there's no surface there, it's just the light. So ARB was comfortable having Old Saybrook and Service since they're internally illuminated at the 7100, but they wanted the Kia logo reduced from Kia standard 7100 to 6000 because it's edge lit.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is what it looks like at night.
Okay. Joe, are there any additional elements that you wish to present?
No, thank you. I think that's everything unless Tom wants us to show you the facade renovation, which I think is a great improvement to what's there now. On this plan itself, the one that I have up, it shows you what the existing service sign is and what the existing building looks like. So it's a far cry from what's there today. You can see this existing picture here. All of this facade and those columns will be removed, right, Tom? And the facade will be redone to look like this. So much more modern, much more attractive, much more code compliant.
The only part that will be illuminated is the part where there are Kia and Old Saybrook letters, right? The rest of the anodized aluminum will not be illuminated, is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct. Yeah, Tom could probably point out where the locations of the building mounted lights are generally over the doorways, right, Tom?
Yeah, they're at the entrance points.
The height of the top of the Kia sign on the front is what distance is the top of that sign above the roof of the building, the part of the building that keeps the rain out?
Here's the roof line here. And the dash line on our elevation, so the Kia sign is more or less right at the existing roof line, but we're building up the parapet.
Building up,
We're extending the parapet up, so that, you know, they want a disproportion of ACM panels to the curtain wall. And so we had to build up the roof line, or the parapet just above the roof line, about 2 feet.
In the east elevation, there's a dashed line across the Kia sign, Kia Old Saybrook sign, just above the Kia letters. And on the left side of that gray sign area, I read 3 feet 10 inches.
Yeah, that's actually the division of the ACM panels.
That page there.
Yeah,
You know,
but that somewhat correlates to the existing roof line behind. It's a flat roof.
in our regulations on 64.3 standards for signs in all districts, at the bottom of the page, there's a drawing of a sign on the front of a building, and it says the maximum sign top extension above the roof of the building is 3 feet. This shows here that it's not in compliance with that regulation.
The sign's not above the roof. The sign's not above the roof line.
The sign, he's saying the sign is not above the roof line.
This sign is not above the roof. What is this? What is the dashed?
We were just representing the existing roof line. So the Kia sign is below the existing roof line. The parapet wall, it's a parapet wall that is here and the roof is down here.
Right, so my question had to do with the roof, not the parapet wall.
So the Kia sign is below the roof line.
So where is there something on this plan which will show me that the top of the sign does not exceed 3 feet above the roof of the building. I don't see that.
Well, the roof's here and the Kia sign's below it.
All right, well, just write that in as a condition of approval, that the top of the sign will not exceed 3 feet above the roof of the building.
Sure.
Hey, Tom, does this zoomed in image up on the screen help you describe that?
Yeah, well, I have our boards here, and so so the Kia sign is below the roof line.
Yeah, this existing dark dashed line is labeled as the existing roof. And see the
Right.
logo sign is below that line.
And if you look over to the left of the gray rectangle that shows the sign, the dimension there is 3 feet 10 inches. That is not the top one. There's 3 of them. That's the bottom one, then there's a middle one, and then there's a top one from the membrane roof to the top of the sign that exceeds 3 feet.
I'm not getting, we're not above the existing roof, we're below the existing roof line where water can't penetrate the building. The top of the sign is below the roof line.
Now, what's that 3 foot 10 inch dimension to?
Those are divisions of the ACM panels. That's a reveal line.
Just the panels?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. It's not clear where the sign is.
But that,
I said it's not clear where the sign, it shows,
The
it's
signs
not
in the
clear where
middle.
the dimension is.
It might be
Just the
easier
sign
to
is.
see on this one, because this is the dash line is the roof, the existing roof, right here. And so.
The sign's in the middle
Yeah, the
panel.
Kia sign is below that dash line.
Each of the panels are 3 feet 10 inches and change. And the Kia sign itself is 3 feet tall.
So,
The Kia sign fits within that one panel.
yeah, it's clearly centered in that middle row of ACM panels.
Well, that would be a condition of approval.
Sure.
That was
That's-
previously
that's-
mentioned.
Can you state that? So I can get that? Have the top of the sign will not exceed 3 feet above roof of the building.
Will not exceed the
roof line.
roof line.
roof, no, the roof.
Well, the regs allow 3 feet.
It says roof
By
of
more
the
than,
building.
by more than 3 feet.
So top of sign will not exceed 3 feet above roof of the building.
Right.
Correct.
And on this plan, the dark hash line is labeled the approximate line of the existing membrane roof. So that to me would be the line from which to measure.
Correct.
Correct. It couldn't be 3 feet above that. Or more
Right.
than 3 feet above that.
So as far as the building lighting goes, we have 2 architectural lights. These are all sky compliant on the front elevation. And then on the north side, near the door entry, and then on the south side near the door entry. There are no emergency lights currently on the building over the exit doors, and so we are providing those. Those lights only come on in case of emergency and power failure, and they are required by code. So that's the only building lighting, the architectural building lighting we're providing, or the emergency lighting on the building. These are the finished materials in the building. This is the ACM panel that goes around the top of the building. We are going to apply a EFIS exterior insulation finish system to the exterior covering that existing CMU. This is the curtain wall, in front and sides. And this is the paint color. We're gonna paint the CMU on the back portion of the building.
And those were all reviewed with ARB.
Yes, they were.
Anything else, Joe?
Nothing at this time. I think that covers all the bases. Pretty straightforward. Really great improvement, much needed. Hasn't been renovated in a while, but the brand goes through every so often and requires the franchisee to do these upgrades. And I think this is going to be a very welcome upgrade. I think the gross floor area is interesting. I think that's either a little bit less or almost a balance, adding the addition because of the existing facade overhang with all those columns along the front being removed. That counts as floor area. So the GFA number is a little bit less or equal, I don't recall, but it's that's why it's more or less balanced.
It's, we're adding about 1,337 gross square feet with the service bay, and we're taking off 1,473 square feet of the building overhang facade, so actually there's less coverage.
Yeah.
Okay. Since this is a public hearing, if there's anyone in the audience or online that wishing to speak in favor of or in opposition to, please identify yourself in the audience. Not seeing anyone.
There's no one online.
No one online. Commissioners, are we prepared to close public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, sir. I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing on this matter.
Second.
Seconded by John Henry. Any discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, passes 5-0-0. Are we able to deliberate on this evening, or is there additional materials needed? Bless you.
Bless you.
Okay, then make a motion to approve the Kia application for special exception use to construct a 1,375 square foot additional facade renovation, new signs and site improvements at 275 Middlesex Turnpike, Assessor's Map 51, Lot 63-2, Business B4 District, with the following condition: that the brand Kia sign is not go above the roof.
And the service sign as
And the
well.
service sign, both the Kia and the service sign, not to go above the roof
Well, by more than 3 feet.
by more than 3 feet. You got that?
She does.
You got that?
Yes.
Was there any, I don't believe there was any other condition. We did, Mr. Wren did mention earlier that, made the motion, is there a
Second.
seconded by Jerry? And discussion is that, for the record, the ARB letter was for approval. But they recommended the reference matter with a recommendation that the logo sign have either a shade component or dimmer to reduce output to 6,000 kelvins, which the applicant has agreed to as well. Any other discussion? Not hearing any, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, passes 5-0-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
You too. Moving on, committee representative and staff reports. I have nothing. Chris is not here this evening. Matt, did you have any words of wisdom for us?
No, not tonight.
Okay.
I'm reading the crowd.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
On that, I made the motion to adjourn, seconded by Bob Friedman. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, thank you.